The escalating trade tensions between the United States and Mexico have now reached a critical juncture, with both countries implementing aggressive measures that threaten to severely disrupt their deeply intertwined economies. Mexico's recent decision to impose trade restrictions on the U.S. auto industry is only the most recent chapter in a broader narrative of economic conflict that has been brewing for months. This trade war, fueled by retaliatory tariffs and major policy shifts, is having far-reaching implications not only for the industries directly involved, but also for consumers and the global economy as a whole. For many years, Mexico has served as a vital cornerstone of the U.S. auto industry, acting as a major manufacturing hub for some of the world's largest automakers, including Ford, General Motors, Tesla, and others. In 2024, Mexico exported an astounding 2.8 million light vehicles to the United States, accounting for more than 80% of the total vehicles Mexico exported globally. In return, the U.S. imported a staggering $79 billion worth of vehicles and $81 billion worth of auto parts from Mexico. This symbiotic trade relationship has been a key driver of economic growth for both nations. The close ties between the two countries in the auto industry have resulted in significant economic interdependence, with both Mexico and the U.S. benefiting from one another's manufacturing capabilities and market access. However, recent developments have placed significant strain on this previously stable partnership, pushing it to the brink of collapse. In February 2025, Mexico unveiled a series of trade policies aimed at reducing its reliance on foreign markets and bolstering its domestic automotive industry. These new measures include restrictions on the export of critical auto parts to the United States, along with an increase in tariffs on U.S.-made vehicles. The timing of these policy shifts is especially significant, as they come just after the U.S. imposed a sweeping 25% tariff on Mexican imports in March 2025. This tit-for-tat escalation has created a volatile economic environment where both countries are scrambling to navigate the fallout. The impact of these trade policies on the U.S. auto industry cannot be overstated. Over 80% of all vehicles produced in Mexico are exported to the U.S., which makes the American market heavily dependent on Mexican manufacturing. The disruption of these supply chains has caused severe ripple effects in production, leading to increased manufacturing costs, shipping delays, and uncertainty among automakers. Major players such as Ford and General Motors, which have made multi-billion-dollar investments in Mexican production facilities, are now being forced to make tough decisions. They face a dilemma. Should they absorb the additional costs associated with tariffs, pass those costs on to consumers, or relocate production to other regions? Each option presents its own set of challenges, particularly in terms of financial and logistical feasibility. The production of electric vehicles, EVs, has emerged as one of the most vulnerable sectors in this conflict. The global push for electrification has already stretched supply chains thin, with critical components such as batteries and semiconductors in increasingly short supply. Mexico's newly imposed trade restrictions only add another layer of complexity to this situation, as they threaten to delay the rollout of new EV models and drive up prices for American consumers. This development is particularly troubling for the United States, which has been striving to maintain its position as a global leader in the transition to electric mobility. The disruption of supply chains at a time when demand for EVs is surging is a significant setback, and it may ultimately hinder the country's ability to meet its ambitious environmental and market goals. The economic ramifications of this ongoing trade war extend far beyond the auto industry itself. The Mexican peso has taken a substantial hit, experiencing a sharp decline of nearly 1% to 20.85% of its value since April 2024. This depreciation has further complicated Mexico's economic situation, as it has led to an increase in the cost of imports and weakened consumer confidence. Moreover, Mexico's economic growth projections have been revised downward, with analysts now predicting a meager 0.81% growth rate for 2025. This is a far cry from previous optimistic forecasts and suggests that the country's economy is struggling to maintain momentum in the face of escalating trade tensions. Mexico's stock market has also felt the brunt of these pressures, dropping nearly 5% in recent weeks as investors express growing concern over the long-term economic outlook. On the other side of the border, the United States has not been immune to the fallout of this trade war. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, one of the key indicators of U.S. economic health, has suffered significant losses, plummeting for 2 consecutive days and losing over 300 points in response to the tariffs. Other major indexes, such as the S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite, have also taken a hit, with both erasing earlier gains in the year. These stock market fluctuations highlight the broader economic uncertainty created by the trade war and reflect the widespread concern that this conflict could spiral into a full-scale trade crisis. Industries reliant on imports, such as agriculture and retail, are particularly vulnerable to the fallout. For example, the restaurant chain Chipotle, which sources a significant portion of its avocados from Mexico, has already reported a 2% decline in its stock value. The social and political dimensions of this conflict are equally complex and have added fuel to the fire. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has harshly criticized the U.S. tariffs, describing them as unjustified and lacking a clear rationale. In response, she has outlined plans to implement additional retaliatory measures, including both tariff and non-tariff actions, which could further exacerbate the situation. On the U.S. side, President Donald Trump has vigorously defended the tariffs, portraying them as a necessary measure to protect American jobs and address a host of domestic issues, including illegal migration and drug trafficking. This rhetoric has further polarized public opinion, with supporters of the tariffs viewing them as a bold and decisive move to safeguard U.S. economic interests. On the other hand, critics warn that such aggressive measures could destabilize global trade and harm the very industries they are meant to protect. The broader implications of this trade war extend far beyond the borders of the U.S. and Mexico. Together, the United States, Mexico, and Canada account for nearly $2.2 trillion in annual trade, making North America one of the most economically integrated regions in the world. The disruption of this trade network could have a ripple effect on global markets, particularly as other nations, such as China and Canada, are also facing heightened trade tensions with the U.S. For instance, Canada has already imposed 25% tariffs on $155 billion worth of U.S. goods in response to similar measures, adding another layer of complexity to the geopolitical landscape. As the trade war intensifies, the pressure on all parties to find a resolution grows. The stakes are particularly high for the U.S. auto industry, which is already grappling with rising costs, supply chain shortages, and increasing competition from China and Europe. The potential relocation of manufacturing facilities back to the United States, while appealing in theory, would come at a much higher cost and could further strain the industry's already stretched resources. These logistical challenges would also make it more difficult for American companies to maintain their competitive edge in the global market. In addition, social media has played a significant role in shaping the public discourse around this trade war. Hashtags such as #AutoTradeCrisis and #Mexico-US Auto Industry have trended on platforms like Twitter, reflecting widespread concern and debate. Industry experts, influencers, and everyday citizens alike have weighed in, offering a range of perspectives. Some view Mexico's actions as a necessary step to assert its economic independence, while others see them as a risky gamble that could backfire. Regardless of one's perspective, it is clear that this trade war represents a defining moment for the North American auto industry. The future of U.S.-Mexico trade relations remains uncertain. Will the two nations find common ground through renewed negotiations and work toward a resolution? Or will the conflict escalate further, causing long-term economic damage to both economies? These questions are not just about trade policy. They have profound implications for the broader economic and political landscape of North America and beyond. For now, all eyes are on policymakers and industry leaders as they work to navigate this complex and high-stakes situation, with the future of the North American auto industry and global markets hanging in the balance.